I probably should have read this before I started, but I didn't, so let's just go. There are three figures below that show the rectangles associated with f of x equals 0.25x plus 1. And above the x-axis between, associated with that, and above the x-axis between x equals 0, I'm just going to point out this stuff, 0 and 9. Okay. In each case, there are 18 subintervals of equal width. The left hand, that's L18. The midpoint, M18. And there it is. Okay. R18, respectively. That's nice. What's the question? In the pull downs, identify each. I'm guessing that the pull downs would say L18, M18, or R18. So remember, all of these correspond to areas of these rectangles. So I'm guessing this 0.5 is the width of each rectangle. That's just a guess. If I'm going from 0 to 9, that's how many spaces? Well, it definitely works out. If I already know there are 18 rectangles, and there's 9 units between 0 and 9 here. There's 18, then each of them have to be half a unit, because this is 1, 2, 3, and so forth all the way up to 9. Yeah? Okay, so that's definitely the width of each rectangle. The rest of these should correspond to the height of each rectangle, I think. So let's see. So this is what I'm thinking in my brain. When I is 1, that's just going to correspond to the first rectangle. So we need to know what the height of the first rectangles are. And it looks like each one of these will give us different heights, just because they have different numbers here. Well, let's see. On this one, if I, like the first corner of the rectangle that touches or the first height of the first rectangle, the height of the first rectangle, I should say, that corresponds to an x value of 0, right? Well, no one's here. So that corresponds to an x value of 0, which means you plug in 0 there, right? And you would get 1. So the height here is 1. So it would be 0.5 times 1 for that. Let's see what happens for our first rectangle. This is blurry. Alright, so if I put in I being 1, do I get a 1? What's 0.125 times 1 plus 0.875? That equals 1. So the first height of the first rectangle is 1 times the width. So I'm guessing, just from right now, L18 is this. L18. Just because it's 1 times 0.5. I'm just checking to see what the heights would be. If I check on this, what would the height be? This is the midpoint. So instead of an x value of 0, I would have an x value of, well, if this is 0.5, then that's 0.25. So the actual height would be the f of x when I plug in 0.25 there. 0.25 times 0.25, and then plus the 1, plus 1 would be 1.0625. So the height of this rectangle, just by finding the x value, the proper x value, that was 1.0625. That's just by finding the first x value. I know this is the midpoint formula, or the whatever, I don't know, what do you call it? But since it's the middle, and each one is 1 or 0.5, then that has to be an x value of 0.25, and then I plug that into my f of x to find my actual height. So I plug it in, found my height. Now I'm going to see which one of these, when I plug in 1, does it give me an x value, or a height, because it's length times, or height times the width, or whatever. So the height should be 1.0625. Let's see what this is. If we plug in 1 there, then we just get 1.125, right? 1.125. That's what that is, if I is 1. So that's not going to work. So I'm assuming that M18 is not this one. So maybe this is M18. Let's see. If we plug in 1 here, well, we get this plus this. What is that? Well, 0.125 plus 0.9375 equals what I wanted, 1.0625. I really hope you're understanding what the heck I'm saying. And then that must be R18. This was L18. All I did here was I noticed, okay, well that's the width of each rectangle. This must be the height of each rectangle because I'm trying to get the area under the curve. And then I just checked the height of the first rectangle by figuring out the x value. I figured out the x value there and plugged it in to my function because that will give me the height, right? That'll give me that point. If I plug in any x value, it'll give me the height of whichever corresponding rectangle it is. So I plugged that in and found out the actual height of the first rectangle, and I knew that that height of the first rectangle corresponds to I equals 1. So I just checked the first rectangles. And there you go. Hopefully that's helpful.